about negative exponents today, but the first thing I want you to do is work this warm-up. So go ahead and pause the video now, work your warm-up, and then come back for the answers. All right, so let's go ahead and look at number 1. So really all this means is multiplication. So I have 18 x to the 4th times another y squared. And in the denominator, I have a 3x to the 8th times a y. And I just like to reorganize them here to help me simplify. So here I've got 18 over 3, which is 6. So I'm just reducing that fraction. Here I have a 4 and an 8, which is what we're going to get into today with our negative exponents. So if I take 4 and 8, I'm actually going to have in the denominator x to the 4th left over. And here I subtract my exponents and I get y by itself. So this would be the final answer. And if you don't understand that, that's great, because that's the lesson we're going to talk about today. All right, and on number 2, two powers get multiplied, so that would be s to the 24th. This is the not distributive property, so I'm going to give 3 to 3. So this would be 3 to the 3rd and s to the 3rd. So 3 to the 3rd is 27, s to the 3rd. I have an s to the 24th and an s to the 3rd, so I'm going to subtract them. So I get s to the 21st over 27. And that would be my final answer. All right, so you need notes out, and we're going to talk about lesson 8.3. So again, your learning goal is the student will understand negative exponents. That's what we're going to focus on. All right, so first thing, before I go over this one, I kind of want to go back to the other one from the warm-up and kind of look at that one. So on the warm-up, we had an x to the 4th over x to the 8th. Okay, and remember what I talked about the last time that we worked with exponents. I said anytime you have the same thing over the same thing, you can cancel. So if I have 4 x's here, and I have 8 x's down here, 4 more. Okay, every time I have the same thing over the same thing, that's one whole. So those cancel out and become a whole. 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 And now I have nothing left in the numerator. Okay, and so I'm going to have a placeholder of a 1. So it's really 1 over x to the 4th, which is why the x to the 4th stayed in the denominator. So what's going to happen here when you subtract is you would get x4 minus 8 would be x to the negative 4. And anytime you have a negative exponent, it really means it's the reciprocal. Okay, so every time I have a negative exponent, I'm just going to think about reciprocal. I call this that they are fractions in disguise. Okay, every time we have that negative exponent. So if I look at letter A, which is 3 to the negative 2, then I'm going to think about that as a fraction in disguise. So I'm going to go ahead and use the reciprocal, and that would be 1 over 3 squared. And sometimes the book wants you to leave it like that, and a lot of times we go ahead and put it like this. So it just kind of depends on what the directions tell you to do. So watch for if they want you to leave it in terms of exponents or leave it as a fraction. All right, then we have letter B, which is this something to the 0 power. So what I want you to think about with this 0 power is that, first of all, if I have, let's go back to my x's. Let's say I have like x to the 4th over x to the 4th. Okay, so if I have these two right here, and I say I have 4 of them, and then I have 4 of them here, well, each one of these cancels out and becomes a whole. So if each one of them cancels out and becomes a whole, I get just 1. And if I look at this, what is 4 minus 4? 4 minus 4 is 0. So anytime I get something to the power of 0, it's going to equal 1 whole every single time. It doesn't matter if I have 3 to the 0, that's 1. 10 to the 0, that's 1. Negative a million to a 0, that is still 1. It doesn't matter what it is. Anything to the 0 power is 1. All right, letter C. So again, we're going to go back to that reciprocal idea. I have a negative exponent, so even when I'm dealing with a fraction, I'm going to use the reciprocal. So this would be 5 over 1 to the now positive 2. And then now I just say, okay, well, 5 times 5 is 25. And my answer is 25. Okay? If I have 0 to the negative 5, so again, I'm going to make it its reciprocal. A lot of times I call this moving it downstairs. I'll say upstairs and downstairs. So if I have a negative, I'm going to move it downstairs. So now I have 1 over to the positive 5, like that. Nice phone ringing right in the middle.